Fantasy for beginners. Thanks so much to a couple of guys in the comments there that have asked, for someone that's brand new to this, can you show us the ropes? And that's what I'm here to do. Yesterday, you would have seen a video popped out about the differences between fantasy and Supercoach. So I did mention a little bit about, higher scoring positions and things like that. So go back and check that one out. A little bit on how this works, guys, is you do pick 21 players. Super simple like that. You make your team name, you get into this front section here and you can start making your team. 13 players in your starting side, 8 players on your bench, and you'll see here int 1, int 2, int 3, int 4, which means interchange, and they will include in your points that you do score. So all 13 starters in the middle of your screen there. When the app comes out, you'll be able to see that. Your 4 interchange players, they will be the scoring players, and your emergencies will not count. Now look, there are some nuances to this, and that is if anyone in your starting 17 players, so the 13 main guys and the 4 in the interchange, do not play, or they have a bye and just say you've missed it, whatever it is, your first emergency will come into play. There's 2 things about this, guys. If they're a guy in your starting side, let's say it's a half that doesn't play, you will need a half on your interchange or your emergency to come into that. And how it works is the first person from 1 to 8 that is a half will come in to that half position, and you will then get your next available emergency as your 17th player. If you have 2 players out of your 17 that don't play, you therefore can get 2 emergency players. The only caveat to this is that if a half doesn't play in your side and you don't have a half on your interchange or your emergency in that 8 players on the left there, you will not receive an extra score. So you would just play with 16 in that week. That's simple enough, I think, and you go back and re-listen to that, and that can help you on that one there. So you do need to select at minimum, 1 hooker, 1 mid, if you see what that means here. You got the edges, you have the halves, you have the centers, and the wing fullback. So 1 hooker, 3 mids, 2 edges, 2 halves, 2 centers, and 3 wing fullbacks. That is the minimum. On the interchange and emergency, it doesn't matter if you have 5 more halves out of that 8 players, it does not matter. What does matter though is trying to get some type of structure and sometimes some type of cover for each position is a really good way to start with. You don't have to in certain situations. If you're confident with, let's just say you picked a Connor Watson or a Reece Robson. Let's say Reece Robson, he doesn't have a bye until round 7. So if you just wanted the 1 hooker this year, Blake Brayley, any of those types of guys, and you don't want any other hookers, then that's fine. You don't have to have any on here, but if he doesn't play, then you don't have someone to cover. Most of the time though, you will know if he's going to be out, if he's injured or whatever it is, and then you can just make the trade nice and easy, right? But it's good to have some type of cover, I think, for each of the positions as you go through. Now, an easy way to help with that is what we call dual position, or DPP. If you see me write that or say that, dual player position. So you see all these guys here on the right, Isaiah Yeo, Hines, Haas, Hughes, they've all got 1 position only. So Hughes is just half. And another thing you can do, guys, is click into that player. So on your phone, when the app comes out, or here on desktop, you click that player and it pops up with their average points last year, how many people own them already to start the year, tells you their next opponent, and you can just click the full player mode there, full player profile, I should say, and it will come down with your general stats, which shows their last 3 average, which was 81 last year, which is pretty wild. It'll also tell you how much they've gone up or down in price, but you go into here to the match stats. And that can be really, really important because right now it doesn't show it. But once they've played a game, it will have every single point that they've scored and how they've done it, which is what you see here. So it'll have their score. It'll have their minutes played. It'll have tries. Try savers is what TS is, which means if they're in a try scoring situation and they stop them, they will get points for that. And we may as well go through what they are worth as well. Tries are 8. Try savers are 5. G is for goal. 2 points. Field goal is 5. Try assist is 5. Line break, 4. Line break assist, 2. Tackle, 1. Tackle break, 2. Missed tackle, -2. Offload to ground is 2. Offload to hand is 4. So they're pretty big scorers that offload for sure. If you're comparing it to my famous hatred of the one scoring part that I don't like is the line break assist of 2, and an offload to ground is 2 as well. So that's a bit frustrating, but hopefully that gets changed in the next 2 years. I'm onto it. Offload to hand is 4. Error is -2. A turnover tackle or intercept is that one. Somewhere where a turnover is created is 4 points. 40-20 is the next one there. It actually pops up there. If you just run your cursor over it, it'll pop up with that there on that one. Meters gained, kick meters. So every 30 meters kicked, they get 1 point. A kick defusal, kicks defuse. So if they're in a try scoring situation, then if they stop it, the kick, basically, if they catch it or hit her out, they'll get a point. Penalties conceded is -2. Sin bin is -5. Send off is -10. So not great. And usually it encompasses a penalty. Forced dropout is 2. We have 6 again infringements. So you get a -1 for that. If it's 6 again, what do they say? Ruck infringement. Then that's where that one comes from. And then the escape from in goal. So again, if it's a try scoring situation and they were to escape from in goal, then they would get the 2 points on that one. So it can be similar to the kick defusal. In that case, they could get the kick defusal and they could get the effective. I keep going to say effective escape from in goal as well. Just say if they've kicked the grubber through and instead of catching it and getting out, which deserves some extra points, whether it's tackle breaks and whatever else you get running meters from that, but you'll get the kick defusal and then the effective escape from in goal as well. So that is the scoring system. Really simple. On that front, you don't have to do anything. You just have to pick your players and watch them on the park. When you are, the best way to follow along, there's 2 ways to follow along during games is on the NRL Fantasy app. You'll look into a section up here. If you just click that game, so we've obviously got the first game up here, Raiders versus Warriors. Once that game is on, you can click into this one and it'll have all the players there. It'll go from highest scorer in that game currently all the way down to the lowest, and it will give you all of their stats here and the points that they get from fantasy. So that's super helpful and easy for you guys to follow along. The other one is on the NRL app. I wouldn't suggest following along on the computer on the NRL website. I would suggest going on the fantasy website. But if you're on your phone and you want to look at it in the actual, look at the stats nice and easy, then I personally like looking at the app sometimes. You get to see it a little bit different. App, NRL app or fantasy app, either way is going to be completely fine. You pick on that one. So we'll go through some player selections in a sec, but just on the side here, when you hit that, the 3 bars on the left, you do have your team, you got your leagues, you got Stats Center and Match Center, but so Match Center is this top bit. Stats Center goes through all the stats, but you can see that just in from footystatistics.com, which we show on this channel, which I'm sure you're familiar with right now. But watching these videos and stuff can be helpful with that as well. And the leagues. So I've got different leagues here already. I've got the private group league set up already with 42 in there, which is cool. And I just put out the info for the JBFA Overall League, which is open for everyone. The winner of that gets an entry to the private group next year, which is good fun. So congrats to Riley, who got that this past year, coming 5th overall and getting into the private group there. But anyways, we'll give you the number wides here, but it's also in the description. 6ZTR67TF, and that'll be in the description as well, along with all the private group information, guys. If you are interested in that, there's heaps of like-minded people that'll help you out, along with myself, and prizes available and top 10 analysis, all the crackingly good stuff there. Okay, so back to your squad and some simple things, guys. You want to look for players in round 1 that are going to score well from the start, whether that's scoring at where they're average last year, which means usually for the most part, that's where they're priced at. So when I say priced at, their average 61 points equals 825k, right? This will change slightly through the year, but it's nothing you have to worry about personally. You just have to look at the situation that they provide themselves in the team, whether they're changing role, from a bench guy to a starter, moving teams where they're going to get more minutes, moving position from a winger in fantasy isn't as good as a fullback, for example. Wingers and centers can be very, very similar, but a fullback has better scoring, as we went through yesterday. In fantasy, with -2s for missed tackles instead of -1s in Supercoach, missed tackles can become very, very important and very frustrating to watch, to be honest with you there. So you want guys that have a pretty good efficiency on that, and therefore they're going to have consistent scoring. You want to get anywhere near a 50 for the majority of players is a big win. If they're a lot cheaper in the sort of 400s, 500s category, you can see here that, guys that are a 45 average price is at that 600k. So if you're hitting a 45 average at 400k for 5 weeks, you're going to make a lot of money. And that's the simple thing to see. And you'll see it'll come up here once the game is, once it's ticked over to the next round, you will be able to click to the player, like I said, and it'll come up here in the full player profile with how much money they change, the change in that week, and then the total change. And yeah, if they're at a certain price, you can see that if they continue to average that, they will make lots of money and be very helpful for your side, because if you can increase the amount your team is worth, you'll end up seeing a lot of the great teams end up near the 15 million mark. And what that allows you to do, if you've got a guy that's 400,000 and he scores really well, average is 45, so 400,000 is close to a 30 mark, pretty much exactly 30, 401. If they average 45, then they're going to get up to 600k, and therefore, if you decide to hold on to them, they're averaging 45, and that's great. If you decide to sell them, you've now increased your salary cap by 200k, and you can use that cash to upgrade to someone that could potentially hit a 50 average, right? And then you continue to build from that. You'll have guys that every year we need to select a host of these guys that are 250, 230k, 300k or so. If they've changed roles or they've come into an opportunity that's going to be fruitful for their scores, then sometimes you see Lockie Galvin last year was 230k and he ended up as a 50 plus scorer and moved up all the way to over 700k. So there are players that do that. There are also players that lose money, and it's all about managing that through the year. The quicker you can make money in your side, the quicker you can get good scorers and continue to build your salary cap to a really high number. But if your salary cap's at 13 million quicker than if someone else is at 12.4 million, then that's 600k that you can play with to upgrade a few of your guys. Or it also means you've got guys in your team that are doing really well and therefore scoring better, and it continues to snowball. The quicker you can get better scorers, pick the right players that actually are doing well and making money rather than holding steady or losing money, it's going to be better for you. There are guys that you're going to be selecting in your side, like a captain, a la Nathan Cleary or an Isaiah Yeo, Nico Hines, these types of guys that are very unlikely to change too much in price, up big or down big. They're going to sit around. If Cleary's at 880, we have seen him get near the million mark, and we've seen him down at 800k. It's not a massive swing either way. You're buying them for the points. It's a mixture at the start. You want guys that consistently score well for you in that first 5 weeks. And you also want guys that could potentially, have a section where they could lose a little bit, but they could also have some upside by making, 150,000 or something like that. These guys up top are the guys you can be confident that they're going to score you those points, because the name of the game at the beginning is scoring well and making as much money as you can with some of these cheaper guys that you'll fill the team with. So you're going to have a mixture of the cheap guys at 250k. You'll have some 400k, maybe a few guys between 400 and 600. And then you will have 4 to 5, 6 of these guys that are anywhere between sort of 650, 700k, all the way up to the Clearys, Yeos, Hines, Payne Haas, Hughes, Latrell Mitchell, these types of guys. So mixing those numbers between your whole team, and you'll notice that when you just go try and make a bit of a team, the best thing is if you are following content creators like myself, I will give you all of the guys that are likely to be playing at the cheaper level, the mid-range level, and the higher price, and you pick the guys you like. It's very, very simple. So if you're new to this game and you haven't seen the video that I just popped out, or the podcast of 150 players that you should look at, it will show all of the cheap guys in that. I've got all their prices on there. So, put a bunch of those cheap guys in for now. We don't know everything so far with 31, 32 days to go until round one. We don't know all the information yet. We know enough. And thankfully the teams and the broadcasters, the journalists around the teams are very, very helpful for us. If you follow a few of them on Twitter, NRL Physio is great for that one. Guys like Supercoach Whisperer, very, very good at bringing that to the Supercoach side of things. There's guys like Barry Toohey for the Knights. These types of guys, Michael Chamis, a lot of these guys are really helpful in providing the information for us. But if you don't want to go too into the weeds of that, then just wait for the information from guys like us or guys in your communities or the private group. These types of things can be very helpful for you guys as new players to get an edge and to get the hang of this as quickly as possible. There's other things we can do across the way that gets a little bit more tricky with your side as well when you're looking at looping. And looping, what that means is you can actually manipulate things a little bit in your starting 17. For example, if you had Jerome Hughes in your side, he has a bye in round 2, the Storm do. So he'll play the first game in that starting side. Beautiful. Round 2, he doesn't play, which means, actually, before I get into that, lockout. Players will lock and you cannot move them around. So all the way up until they play their games, so until the Storm game starts, which is really cool in footy, is that basically if the start time's 4 o'clock, the game starts at 4 o'clock, which is awesome. So you could be watching it and moving that player around your screen all the way until then. So you click this little three bars there, and what you can do is captain them, vice captain them, sub them, which means move them around, and bin them, so delete them from your team. So yeah, I just deleted him then. But if I was to sub him, it's hard to do right now when I've got no one in the squad, but let's just say there's another half in interchange or emergency right now. You'd be able to hit, it'll come up there on the side, S, and you can click sub, and they will change with each other. So Hughes will go to the bench, and that half player will go to the starting side. But the good thing is here, with looping, we're trying to make it really, really simple for you here. So if you had one half here, then there's no real point of looping, to be fair. If you've made your trades and you can't really do much with your side, then that half player will just come straight in for Hughes anyway. So in that scenario, and you weren't able to do anything else, then it's better just to leave the halfback in this spot, especially as a beginner, and just leave Hughes on the bench, right, for that point in time. If you were to have two halves on your bench, what you could do is put one of them in emergency 6, put the other one in emergency 7. What that means there is the emergency 6 guy, you want to have the guy that plays in the first or second game in that emergency 6. If you are happy with emergency 6's score, you would leave emergency 7, being the halfback, the other halfback in your team, in number 7, and therefore you would get emergency 6's score, because as I said at the start, if your halfback doesn't play, you'll get the first available half down this list on the side, which would be number 6. And therefore number 7 does not come into play at all. Alternatively, if you do not like number 6's score and you don't want to take it, you would move emergency 7 either above emergency 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1, or put that half in Jerome Hughes' slot there and move Jerome to number 7. So therefore you would take that player's score. So what it does is just help with a bit of safety. If you're not sure who to pick, you can do it that way, which is really cool. I think that's an easy way to explain it. I hope that helps for you guys. And if it didn't, it will come up through the season, but just listen to that again and go back through it. That is a little bit of a more advanced way of looping. The easier way, and hopefully this makes a little bit more sense now for you, is with the interchange looping. So, easiest one to do it. Emergency 5, put any player that plays early in the first or second game. And the reason for that, guys, is because, let's just say it's someone from the Raiders, you put them in emergency 5, everyone from the second game onwards, so Panthers or the Panthers-Sharks game all the way through to the final game, which is going to be the Storm and the Eels, all of those players you can move around and they're not locked in. Whereas the Raiders players and the Warriors players become locked in. So you put a Raider in number 5. Let's just say Zach Hosking is in our sides, who, well, we're worried about injury right now. So let's just say, yeah, you are worried. He's going to start, but you're worried about his injury history and him having this calf problem. So you put him in emergency 5, right? You have a player that isn't playing in round 1, which are the Titans, in your side. And you're like, well, I really like them. I'm going to sit them in my emergencies. And they're obviously not going to score for me because they're not playing in round 1. I'm going to safety loop, is what we call it as well. So that's the lingo around that one. Zach Hosking sits in number 5 slot. He comes out and he hurts his calf in the 10th minute, and he only ends up on 10 points. Not death wishing him on that. I really hope that he doesn't, and I hope that he's okay. But he's in that number 5, which means he's outside that scoring 17 from what we spoke about earlier. The starting 13 in the middle, and then interchange 1, 2, 3, 4 makes up that 17. Hosking is in 18th man territory. If you like his score and he comes out and gets 40 plus, you're pretty happy with that. As I said, we're hoping for the majority of our players to hit sort of 40 plus. There will be some cheaper guys that are 250, 300, 400k that if they hit like a 35, it's still pretty solid for how low they are priced, right? But for those guys at this point of the year, 40 plus, happy with that. Take that in your 17. You would then move a Titans player up into emergency 4 and push out one of the guys you were thinking about playing in your interchange 4, which is your 17th man. Think of it like that. Starting 13, interchange 1 is 14, interchange 2 is 15, interchange 3 is 16, interchange 4 is 17. You'd move that bye player, the Titans guy, into interchange 4 and move that guy that you were thinking about playing out into 7, 8, 6, doesn't matter. And therefore, the Titans guy will be your 17th man because he has a bye and is not playing. That counts as needing an auto emergency, which will be your next available player being emergency 5. That is the simplest way to do looping, and that is the most common one you're going to do in your first couple of years of playing NRL Fantasy. The second one, it can get a little bit more tricky, a little bit more fancy. So if that didn't make sense to you, that's okay. Practice playing that way, the one I just described with emergency 5, and that will be very, very helpful for you across the season, because since I've learned this for the last bunch of years, it has helped me multiple times with being not sure with certain players, and half the time it happens, you get a 50 from one player and you get a 10 from the other, and of course you pick the 10 player in your starting side and it cooks you. Whereas this one, it's a bit safer. If the guy does come out and get 10, you just play the other guy. If the guy comes out to get 50, you delete the other guy and put him into emergency 6, 7, 8. And that can be very simple for you. All right, is there any other lingo? Oh, the dual position. Sorry, I didn't go through that fully in the end. But the first dual position guy on our list here is Jaden Campbell. And then we have Mitch Barnett there as well. So Jaden Campbell can be put into half, or he can be put into wing fullback. And that also includes with this loop thing as well. So he could be looped for halfback, coming in for Jerome Hughes, or if I had a wing fullback that's not playing in a certain week, Jaden Campbell could come into that spot as well in wing fullback there. So those guys that can be put in two positions are very helpful, because you've got 21 players in our squad and 17 playing every week. And, you know, if you had an injury to your hooker, then you need to have a hooker in your side. And that might mean moving someone else into that spot, and then you might be short in one other position. And that's where these guys with two spots, Barnett with mid and edge, can be very, very helpful to your sides there for sure. So that's some important stuff there that you will see. And also this blue, I think it's blue, whatever, with the square in the middle, that means that they are on a bye this week. If it's got a question mark next to it, it's because we don't have team lists yet, and we don't know if they're going to be picked or not. But you definitely know that Tino and guys like Campbell, all these guys are definitely out in round one because they are Titans players who have a bye. So that's the other thing to look at as well, team, is in the NRL official app, you'll see that when you go through the draw, there's a team each week that has a bye. So you just have to be aware of that as well. which can make this game a little bit more difficult, but it also makes it fun at the same time. So you'll see that with the question mark, but once team lists are out, they'll have a tick next to the name if they're playing, which will be cool. And it will clearly let you know if they're not picked either, which is good. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, guys. Once you've put your team together, you don't have to like click a reserve or anything on these guys. Just make sure they're in the interchange spots, which are clearly, color marked. And then you do put a vice captain and a captain. Vice captain, they're just there for safety. They're not used much in fantasy. If your captain doesn't play, you'll get double points for your vice captain. If your captain plays, who you select there, as I said before, then he will get double points, which is very helpful as well. How you can do your trades from round one, after round one, I should say. Right now it's the bin, just deletes them. But when it's trade time in round 2 and onwards, it'll just be a trade button there. Once you click the position, instead of bin, it'll be T for trade. You can also go into the trade section here and it'll show you there. You can select trade out, trade in, and go from there. We will talk about actually in round 2 some trade features that you'll have to learn as well, but we'll save that for a later date. I hope that was really helpful for you beginner players, guys. I'm here trying to be super inclusive. There's guys that have played here for 5-10 years, and there's guys out there that are really fresh to the game as well. So if you do have any further questions as a beginner to the game, let me know in the comments, and I do hope that was very, very helpful and was spoken clearly and concisely enough. And as I said, all the information for that, signing up to the private group, but also the league code is in the description below. Big thanks to all you guys for being here, and we'll catch you in the next videos going through the hooker cheapies will be the one next. So can't wait for that, guys. See you later.